This guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
The economic vandalism and carbon tax cover-up of this government has now been exposed because of a relentless conservative pressure. The government finally leaked out to the CBC the economic hit Canada will take, originally reported at $20 billion. With inflation, it's $30 billion a year, or almost $2,000 for every single family in Canada, something they tried to silence the parliamentary budget officer from exposing. How can we believe anything this Minister of Environment has to say on taxes?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my honourable colleague and friend, the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, often says in this House, the Conservative Party of Canada are entitled to their opinion, not their own sets of facts, Mr. Speaker, and the facts are clear. 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back from carbon pricing than it cost them. And not only that, Mr. Speaker, but the data also shows that carbon pricing is already responsible for the reduction in pollution level by 25 million tons. That's half of our emission reduction so far, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's not my numbers, it's his numbers.
Exactly.
His own department just released data moments ago showing that the real cost will be $30 billion in hit to our economy. This is above and beyond the direct cost at the pumps and on people's heating bills. Now, when the parliamentary budget officer said this, he denied it. Right. He tried to gag the parliamentary budget officer and shut him up completely. Why did this minister try to hide the facts and punish a legitimate, hard-working public servant who tried to tell the truth?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think we've established in this House that math was not the forte of the Leader of the Opposition, and that he has a hard time counting past 6, Mr. Speaker, which is the number of social housing he did when he was Minister responsible for housing. But the facts are clear. 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back from carbon pricing than the pricing system costs. Not only that, but carbon pricing is responsible for half of our emission reduction, 25 million tons less pollution in the atmosphere in Canada because of carbon pricing, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That 8 out of 10 fact does not include the $30 billion of economic costs. That is $2,000 of additional costs for every single family. When we exposed that, he denied it. When the parliamentary budget officer reported on it, they attacked him and tried to gag him. Mr. Speaker, that minister is not worth the economic vandalism. We cannot believe a word he says about taxes. He needs to resign. When will the Prime Minister fire him?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I noted in the discussion yesterday the Leader of the Opposition's newfound respect for economists. But let me tell him, 300 economists, in addition to the PBO, say 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money back. It works directly inverse to income. This Leader of the Opposition ignores the costs of climate change. Mr. Speaker, here are the facts. His climate plan is to let the planet burn. It is to ignore the economic opportunities associated with the energy transition. And look, this is a fellow who ran in the last campaign on putting in place a carbon price. Who is telling the truth?
Order. Order.
carbon tax will cost every single Canadian household more than $1,800 in lost GDP. That's a $30 billion secret they kept. Not once in anything ever released claiming that Canadians were somehow better off with the carbon tax did the minister include these devastating economic costs he knew existed, because it was more important for him to continue to spread the falsehood. Canadians deserve to know they deserve a minister who will tell the truth. If he's incapable of that, when's he going to resign?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said earlier in this House, it is great to see that the Conservative Party of Canada now actually believes that economists are thoughtful and give good advice. 300 of them signed a letter that told people 8 out of 10 Canadian families do get more money back. I would encourage my honourable colleague to read that letter. And certainly, I would say that as we move forward, we must have a plan to address climate change, but we must do so in a manner that's affordable. That's exactly what carbon pricing does. That is something that we will continue to do, balancing the environment and the economy versus a party that actually has no plan for the environment whatsoever.
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
This government that gagged the parliamentary budget officer that actually told Canadians the truth, and they cherry-picked portions of the data that supports their version of the truth, which makes them look even more guilty. If they truly believed that the carbon tax was helping, they would release the report. Instead, they kept a $30 billion secret from Canadians. The minister wanted to tell Canadians that paying more for gas, for groceries, for home heating, they would be better off. Misleading Canadians about $30 billion. I don't know how he looks anyone in the face. When will the Prime Minister actually fire him?
The Honourable Minister for the Environment and Climate Change.
How can the Conservative Party of Canada and those members who campaign to put in place a price on pollution, Mr. Speaker, can look anyone in the eyes is beyond me. How can they look anyone in the eyes and say, we're doing nothing to protect you against forest fires, we're doing nothing to protect you against hurricanes, we're doing nothing to protect you against flooding, Mr. Speaker. They have no plan for the economy, they have no plan for climate change, and they have no plan to work with communities to protect them from the devastating impacts of climate change.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member from Haldimand, Norfolk.
Mr. Speaker, this government tried so hard to hide the truth that the carbon tax was driving up the cost of everything in Canada. The parliamentary budget officer even had to call them out for blocking the release of their own economic impact report. They were literally forced to release the report. And now we all know that each Canadian family is losing at least $1,800 a year, and there's no rebate for that. So when will this Environment Minister finally resign for misleading Canadians?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources and Energy.
I would encourage my honourable colleagues on the other side of the House to actually go and talk to the PBO, to talk to economists, to talk to the 300 economists who have said 8 out of 10 Canadian families get more money back, and it's those that live on modest incomes that actually do the best. But I would say the collective amnesia that actually exists on the other side of the House is the pinnacle of hypocrisy. Every one of those members, including the member opposite who asked the question, campaigned on putting in place a price on pollution. It is hypocrisy.
The Honourable Member from Haldimand, Norfolk.
What is hypocritical, Mr. Speaker, is that even while their carbon tax was costing families more than $1,800 a year, even while they knew that over 2 million Canadian families per month were accessing the food banks, the Liberals continued to try to convince Canadians that they were better off for paying a higher carbon tax. A $1,800 tax is a lot of money to many Canadians. So, when will this Liberal government give Canadians back their money and fire the Environment Minister?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, this government is very proud of this Environment Minister who has put the first credible plan on the table in history to meet our Paris agreements, the Paris agreement that they want to rip up. No surprise, they've gotten all of the data today that shows that 8 out of 10 Canadians, Mr. Speaker, are better off 3% of Canadians, not the people who draw a paycheck, make an honest living, go to work every day, and pay their taxes on time, Mr. Speaker.
While Canadians are struggling to make ends meet, this Prime Minister put a gag order on the Parliamentary Budget Officer. Why? To prevent the PBO from releasing the full report exposing the true cost of the NDP Liberal carbon tax. We now know that the carbon tax will cost Canadians $30 billion in economic activity. That's over $1,800 for every family. So why continue to muzzle the PBO? Is it because the report is so damning it should cost the minister his job? When will the Prime Minister fire his truth-evading minister?
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Speaker, on this side of the House, I can tell you, and Canadians are proud of the Environment Minister. You know what? Because he is standing up for what is right for this country, Mr. Speaker. Whilst you have the climate deniers on the other side, they want to see the planet burning. We want to act for our children. We want to act for future generation. Mr. Speaker, 8 family out of 10. 8 out of 10. We know it's tough to go beyond 6 for these guys. It's just 6 plus 2. That gets to 8. 6 plus 4 gets to 10. 8 out of 10 will get more money, Mr. Speaker. We'll fight for Canadians at every step of the way. We'll fight for climate change, and we'll fight for our children, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Red Deer Lacombe.
This Prime Minister's dirty $30 billion secret has been exposed. His carbon tax will cost Canadian families far more than they pay into it. That's money out of the pockets of people trying to feed their kids, heat their homes, pay their rent, and fill up their cars. So why are the Liberals so afraid of releasing the full report? Why is the budget officer muzzled? If the NDP Liberals won't end the cover-up, tell the truth, and release the full cost of the carbon tax, then the minister should resign. Why won't he get to it?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, there's no surprise these Conservatives want to move on from the fiasco of 2 days ago when they voted for the 0.13% of taxpayers and set aside the 99.87% of taxpayers who are not affected by a capital gains change. They want to stand up for people who've made $250,000 on investments in a given year, and they won't stand up for the electricians, the farmers, the janitors who earn a paycheck every week and do it honestly, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, a secret government report confirms what Canadians already know. The carbon tax is costing Canadians more than they're getting back. The report says the carbon tax is costing Canadians $30 billion a year. That's almost $2,000 a household per year. This government's not worth the cost. When will the Environment Minister resign?
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And it looks like the Conservatives want to change the channel. I mean, yesterday they were all about talking about capital gains, fighting for the rich guy, you know, holding up plumbers and electricians. And, well, they didn't actually talk about waitresses or school bus drivers, and talking about how, you know, they're fighting for the little guy. On this side, we know that those Conservatives don't care about people that are pulling a paycheck, but rather they're focused on their ultra-rich friends.